Hello and welcome to the Coaching Podcast, coaching for success in sport and business. Your host is Emma Doyle, the energy and high performance under pressure coach who is a world leader in unleashing human potential. Buckle up for this high octane session. Let 'em have it, coach.
G'day everybody and welcome to the Coaching Podcast. I am here today with Tony Latimer, who is a master executive coach and working with global leaders in transition. He's been coaching since the early 80s. I love his background as it relates to the inner game of tennis and working with Timothy Galway and the likes as he transitioned into becoming a master coach. The simplicity of mastery. Can't wait to talk to you about all of this, Tony, and so much more. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here, Emma.
Do you prefer sushi or let's go, especially I'm thinking Singapore, tempura?
Neither. It would be sashimi for me.
Sashimi. Let's get rid of the rice. How long have you lived in Singapore?
This time around 24 years.
24 years.
Yeah, so I came here originally about 1980.
Yeah.
And I was here for about 4 or 5 years. Got married. We went back to the UK for 5 years, spent 4 years, 11 months and 3 weeks trying to figure out how to get out of there again. We lived in Malaysia, running around the region, working for about 4 years, then back to the UK for 9 years, and then finally back here. Yeah.
Wow, fantastic. So, for those who haven't visited Singapore, there's something about the energy of the place in relation to following rules and the cleanliness and, it's a really beautiful, beautiful part of the world. Highly recommend it. So I want to talk about following rules. I've obviously in my research with you looking at, there's so many different coaching models out there. And certainly I teach coaching models, but tell me at what point do you sort of let go of the model and move off into coaching somebody based on energy? I've gone deep straight away, Tony. That was the first intuitive question. I want to know.
Okay. You want to go deep. All right, let's go deep. So you can coach at 2 levels. You can coach Newtonian physics or you can coach quantum physics. So ACC, PCC, and even just over the bar MCC can all be done Newtonian physics. By which I mean, what can you see? What can you hear? What are the words you say? So we're using our key senses. The difference between the ACC, PCC and getting your black belt is letting go of the models. If you read the ICF documentation, it actually in one of the guides to what are we looking for at MCC level, it actually says the coach who uses a predefined or prepared question structure or model will never be awarded mastery. So that you have to kind of let go of. And then once you've got the MCC, once you're over the bar, that's like getting your black belt. Now you know what you're doing. Now you get invited to the black belt only class where you're the most junior person in the room. This is the beginning of the journey. And my mental picture is we've then got the sort of the 8 dans that you have in karate of what's the degree of energy you're able to bring to it.
It did. And just for those who are not familiar with the ICF language, ACC, think about it, I guess, as a level 1 accredited certified coach, and then the PCC being the professional certified coach. So think level 2 and then mastery, potentially level 3, just to give a bit of context.
It's your karate colored belts and then your black belt, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And the energy levels are the 8 dans on the black belt.
Yeah. Okay. So how does a coach, because I know that you believe you can teach mastery even to a beginner coach. Okay.
Yes.
So how does a coach prepare from an energetic perspective to get in the right mindset for really being able to be present in the coaching session?
The key to it is surprisingly practical. And again, you think back to your context of the sports stuff. I've done some sports stuff, and my current thing is Formula One. And the 10 minutes before the race starts, when Brundle's doing his grid walk, he can talk to anybody, maybe, except a driver. Because the driver's down there ignoring everybody, blotting them out, getting themselves in the zone, getting that clear, focused mind. If you've ever done meditation, when it works, that clear awareness you get when your conscious awareness just goes quiet. If you talk to free divers, they will spend 20, 30 minutes on the beach before they dive, literally meditating to just slow themselves down and focus. So that's actually the key to it. The thing we're looking for somebody to coach at a mastery level is, no, go back a step. When you learn to coach in the non-directive coaching sense, you're letting go of being the problem solver. And that's not easy. When you're trying to get to mastery, you've got to let go of the need for the problem to be solved at all. So as the coach, yes, you're not going to solve the problem, but you're under pressure to perform, so your client must solve their problem. That's what you have to let go of. So it's really getting yourself out of the way completely and losing all attachment to your performance. And that's how you do it. Now, what I found over the years is the key to this is a very, very deep listening skill. So first thing I teach coaches is how to listen from their subconscious. So you need to create, you go through an exercise to create the empty-minded state. And I believe all mind states we experience are stored. We talk about people who've had trauma situations in the past, they have flashbacks. Now, so something external to them triggers them to recall a stored memory state, and it must be stored or they couldn't go back to it. So if somebody can have a flashback, it means those mind states are stored. So recognizing that, if you then deliberately store an empty-minded state, if I give you the experience of totally emptying your conscious awareness, that's now stored. All you then have to do is practice recalling that state. And when we teach them to do it, it's like 3 times a day. There's an 8-second routine that you do 3 times a day, practicing getting back to that empty state. Now, the other interesting thing that happens is people experience physical manifestations of the emotional content of the neural pathway they're currently accessing. We experience a physical manifestation of the emotional content of the neural pathway that we are currently accessing. If you think about something sad, you get saline liquid dripping from the ducts around your eyes. Okay? If you think about something embarrassing, the physical manifestation may be increased blood flow, muscle changes, and so on. When you learn to listen from your subconscious, there are no filters or distractions getting in the way. So you pick up those signals more clearly. It's like everything just gets sharp tuned in focus, right? But what also happens is it starts to reawaken our ability to connect energetically with people. So this whole Newtonian quantum physics energy connection, it is just physics, and it's not something we teach people that's new. I think we're reawakening an inherent ability that humans have always had, and we've kind of let it go dormant. What seems to happen is learning to listen from the subconscious reawakens that energy connection. You start picking up the little signals, and your thoughts are physical. Your thoughts are electrochemical signals on neural pathways in your brain. So when you access a particular neural pathway, you also have a physical manifestation at the energetic level. If the coach in front of you is able to pick up those signals, they're going to get something. So where that shows up in a client conversation, very often people will come in and talk about, okay, what is it you need to work on today? And they'll ramble on for a little while. And you might, as the coach, hear 3 or 4 different things. They're connected, sure, but they'll talk about it as if it's one problem, when in actual fact it's 3 or 4. Now, your job is to help them get to the one thing where you've got to start, because you can't do all at once. So you've got to get to root cause. And as you listen, sometimes they'll say things like, well, okay, so I need to deal with this, and then I need to deal with that. Oh, and then there's this one, but no, that's not really important. And then this last one. And as they went, that's not really important. So the words and everything were saying, this is the least important, but the energy signal hits you like a bolt of lightning. And you go like, oh, wow, that's the one. So you can then just go straight for it. And they will just go like, oh my God, how did you know? You just read the signals.
So I was going to ask, a coach who might be thinking, like, let's go for a sports coach for a minute, where they've got back-to-back lessons in tennis, or let's say they've even a manager who's got back-to-back meetings, and all of a sudden someone comes in and they have to switch that on. Because I was going to say, well, they can't really go and meditate before their coaching session, but you mentioned here 8 seconds to access.
Right. So once you've stored it, the routine that I teach you to practice 3 times a day is this 8-second technique to deliberately recall that empty-minded state, so everything just calms down. What I found is, if you do that 3 times a day for a few months, and how long? Weeks, 2 or 3 months, it's different humans, right? But once you get it, what you find is you will get to a point where you can just switch it on like that. So in a split second. So I can be chaotically whatever I've been doing, and then if I need to focus and connect on something, I can just switch it so that everything shuts away and I'm just there. So yes, and that's exactly why you need to learn these sort of fast techniques. I mean, the world's just moving too fast for anything else, and it's not slowing down, right? So
speaking of fast, one of the things that blew me away in watching now a number of your coaching demonstrations on YouTube is the power of the pause, and just how long you can sit in silence. Like, hat off to you. I was like, whoa. I had the urge myself watching you to want to fill in the space and jump in. Knowing that goes against my training, and of course one of my mentors, shout out to Damien Carmody Stevens, who lived in Singapore for a very long time as a national kendo coach. He taught me the power of the pause when I was 18 years of age, after watching me coach some tennis. Talk to me about being comfortable in that silence. What's happening there for you?
A couple of things. One is the realization that if they're silent, there's only 2 possibilities. Either they're thinking or they're not. If they're not thinking, they will very soon come back to you and say, oh, is it my turn? Or, sorry, what was the question? In which case you just do it again and trigger their thinking. If they are thinking, they will speak when they finish thinking. And coaching is the process of making people think. Once you've got that started, let it run. And the further somebody goes down into their subconscious, the faster the thought process happens. There was some stuff I read a couple of years ago where one of the universities had done some measurements on this, and it was something like the speed of the electricity of the signals in the brain. When somebody's in their conscious awareness, it's 100 miles an hour. Where they're at the lowest level of the subconscious, it's 100,000 miles an hour. So it's a vast difference. So the reason those coaching demos you've seen, we always get an intense, deep breakthrough in the 20, 30 minutes. Because you get them thinking, and the further they go down, as long as you don't disrupt them, because anything you say will just pull them back up to their conscious awareness, and then it all stops again. So you've just pulled the handbrake on. You're not going to do that. It's on a roll. So you just let it roll.
Mm.
Now, so once you got the realization that that's what's happening, and they're still processing, so there's nothing for you to do except focus on the energetic connection. So you are actually being very active, but you're being active with connecting and moving the energy. And what I also have done is, while I'm doing that, I've trained my subconscious to be listening for certain things. So if you like, I'm consciously working the energy. My subconscious is listening for keywords that are clues to beliefs that could be blocking them. So it's looking to pick up certain signals. Yeah.
Beliefs, values, fears, is that what you're...
It's words, yes, words that contain or have behind them emotions and values and beliefs. Those seems to be the key. They're the things that link down to the bottom of the subconscious. And when you find those, you go for that. And that's how you get to the breakthrough.
So one thing...
So it starts with listening.
Yeah. Deep level listening. And I know that you believe that listening is the key to everything. What about when you get home at night? You've been listening all day with your clients. I know sometimes I get home and then it's like, you're not listening to me. I was like, because I spent all day deep level listening. Yeah.
Yes. It's so one of the exercises we give coaches when we're teaching them is like, go home, sit down with your partner, get in this empty-minded state and just say, so how was your day? And then listen from your subconscious. The first reaction, particularly if you're a man and you're sitting down with a woman, the first reaction is going to be like, what's he been smoking? And then she'll go, but never mind, who cares? I'm enjoying this. And you will, because when you listen to somebody from that place, they can tell something's happening, because judgments are a conscious awareness reaction. The things that, you're listening hard to somebody and then something just triggers a thought and you're gone. These are all conscious awareness stuff. So they go away when you learn to listen from the subconscious. So you make somebody feel heard in a way that they never have before. I have so many of my clients in a first meeting, they will, after 10 minutes, they heave that big sigh and go, I've never told anybody this, but it's like, okay, here we've got somebody maybe in their 40s or 50s who is now telling me, a total stranger, after 10 minutes, something they have never told anybody ever. How come? Because they're being heard, and they can sense the lack of any judgment or any agenda, because that's all conscious awareness stuff.
One thing I want to actually bring up, since we met last, I know you didn't meet me, but since we met last, I actually bought myself a desk, one of those standing desks.
Right.
Because just to shift my energy, and it's almost like I'm presenting, which I can really think differently when I'm standing versus sitting. So to just shift my own energy. That's one thing I wanted to bring up. The second thing is around note taking. So when the minute I'm taking a note or I'm writing down something, sometimes I'm losing looking at the person. So I wanted to ask you, I know you get a lot of your coaching sessions transcribed. So I'd like to ask you about not taking notes, like your take on that, and also about how AI will play out in coaching in 2030. What are your thoughts on those two things?
We've got another hour, right?
I wish.
Yeah. Okay. So let's do the first one first. Don't take notes, ever. The human body has one spectacular failing. Your ears and your mouth do not work at the same time. And your thoughts, your conscious thoughts, is your internal mouth. To take notes, you have to be in your conscious awareness and you are thinking. If you are doing that, you can't be listening. You may hear them, but you're not listening. Now, I know people go, oh, but then how do I? You don't have to do it. You don't have to take notes. I know some coaches like to sort of send follow-up notes to the client. Well, no, I don't. I make my clients write their notes. They do the work, not me. Now, I know this is for real. So, for example, when I'm going and talking to a company about some leadership development issues, we might go and have a 1 or 2 hour meeting. We'll scribble stuff all over a whiteboard about what their issue is, how it maps out, how I think it'll work. Now, I'll have to write them a discussion document capturing that conversation. I don't take any notes at all. I'm busy listening to them and processing it. I can sit down a day later, a week later, sometimes several weeks later, and just say to my subconscious, okay, replay that conversation for me. And I'll get it 100% correct. Short term, there's a whole lot of complicated stuff about what happens to our memories long term. But rather than using the term memory, if we talk about storage and recall, nobody has a storage problem. What we have is a recall problem. So that's the one to practice. And you can sit down, I guarantee if you sit down at the end of a coaching session when the client's gone, and then you want to recall what happened and make notes, you're going to be pretty accurate with that. Because you can just recall it. It's in there. It's just about pulling it out. I'll give you a proof point for this one. You can continually teach yourself. So about 2 years ago, do you know More Master Coaching in the States? Okay. So it's a membership program where every month the members get to listen to master coaches coming in to teach something or play a recording or all that sort of stuff. And I got asked to do a session. So I did one of these, but one of the first times I'd done one of these live coaching demos to a total stranger. And at the end of it, the host turned around and said, great, Tony, so what we do now after this is I'd like you to just talk the audience through what you did, how it happened. And I went, what? I have no idea what I did. I'm operating down from my subconscious and I have no idea what I did. I couldn't even tell you what they said. I was just in there in the zone doing it. Anyway, so the end of the session wasn't very good. The next day I'm in the gym and as I'm sort of focused and sweating, I must have gone to bed thinking something like, I wish I could remember what was in those sessions, what was in that app. I'm halfway through my exercise routine and my subconscious goes, hey, you know what? You know that thing you were asked last night about what triggered this and why did you say that? Well, let me tell you. And it just gave me a complete replay of the session. And here was the thing the client did or said that triggered you to do or say this. And the whole analysis just came back. So I rang them up and went, hey, we need to do another session. I'm going to do a debrief. So we did. She sold another program where people got the recording, and then we did a live debrief of it. So what I realized was that people would like this. So what I then did was taught my subconscious to have another thread going on as I'm coaching. And this thread is kind of recording and analyzing what I'm doing. So when we get to the end of the 30 minutes and we throw it open to the audience for what are your questions, my subconscious then kicks in and goes, here's the replay. And it can then tell me exactly what I did in the last half hour. So it's fun because there's seemingly no limit to what you can teach your brain to do for you. Right? So you can just be in the zone while you've got all these subroutines running in the background. AI, wow. So I've always tended to be an early adopter. My background was in tech always, so I'm always interested in what's happening. Here's a phrase you should write down and never ever use again. AI will never be able to, and then complete the sentence with, however you currently make your living. Because that statement just not valid anymore, ever, right? AI is phenomenally helpful in a number of areas. So for example, I don't do much leadership training anymore. I do half-day masterclasses because they're a better way in the fast-paced world of teaching. I've put 30 years of my content into a private database within a GPT chat front end. So what I give my coaching clients is, because very often when you're doing leadership coaching, particularly progressions upwards, they need to learn stuff. So some coaching, some learning is going to be needed. Now, I'm fortunate I have all the knowledge because I have all the IP around that they need to learn. But what I can now do is let them do that learning cost effectively by talking to the AI tool. So if you've got a question about how do I do this in leadership, how do I do that, just go and get some just-in-time learning from the AI tool. Then we can focus the coaching on the deeper stuff about why are you struggling with this and putting it in your ideas into practice. So that it's very effective from that side. There are some really neat tools coming along now. For example, if you're doing mentor coaching, ones like a video, which will almost instantaneously analyze a recorded coaching session against the core competencies and the PCC markers, which is pretty impressive, and means, again, the mentor coach can spend more time on the deep stuff. Yeah? So good use of tools like that coming along. There are people who constantly bringing out coaching tools, which, to be honest, two thoughts here. One, they're rubbish. And I mean that nicely. If you accept their limitations and accept that they can't really coach, you only need to push them a couple of times and they trip over and give advice. But that's because inherent in the design of GPTs is that they are designed to answer questions from a knowledge base. And coaching isn't about answering questions from a knowledge base. So one argument would be you need to redesign how a GPT works to be the opposite way around. Or you can partly solve it by giving it sensors. Excuse me. So if we look at what happened a few months ago when OpenAI put their brain inside of the robot. You know, you've seen that video with the guy in front of the table with the apples and the dishes. So
yep,
when it's got the sensors, you're giving it access to that Newtonian physics communication style. So it can then start to do things a little bit more coherently. So build that capability into the software behind your webcam, and then we've got something different that could happen.
Mm.
But the tools, like some of those coaching groups have got one. Rebecca Reusman in Germany's got one that's based on a certain coaching model. I've tried 2 or 3 others, because they do trip over, but will AI never be able to do that? I wouldn't say so. I would say within a relatively short period of time, they will crack it. And basic level coaching, and I would say ACC, PCC, and maybe basic MCC, the Newtonian physics stuff, could be done by an AI tool. A lot will hinge on who's teaching it, and how they teach it, but I wouldn't rule it out.
Yeah.
So I think the significant thing is human coaches. Human coaches are going to need to be able to coach at the energetic level. You've got to bring the mastery in, and you've got to be able to up your game to do what. So the sensors don't exist to do the energy connection. So you can't give the AI robots those sensors. So there's stuff that humans can do that they cannot do with current technology. I was going to say the message for coaches is, if you're operating at those more basic levels of coaching, don't expect to be still making a living out of that in 5 to 10 years' time. Yeah.
Yep. Thank you for sharing. It opens up my intuition around, I've always had this energetic connection with the people that I coach, and learning how to tap into that more and more, I think is super important. So in 1 to a maximum of 3 words, what do you think makes a great coach?
Listening and energy.
I'm not sure why I wrote that down.
Yes, you could always check your recording later.
Correct, because I was being so present. I always block out my face when I'm fully talking. Okay, so let's talk about your background. You mentioned Formula One. You've mentioned, I mentioned at the start of the show around when you first studied the Timothy Galway method, the inner game of tennis. Yeah, I'd love to hear your backstory on how did that come about?
I was working for a software company that were IBM business partners. And Galway set up his inner game company in the UK, and a young tennis player called Alan Fine was one of his first people running the courses. I believe the head of IBM UK at that time, who is now and has been for some years a very successful executive coach, was a very keen amateur tennis player. So I don't know, had IBM done all the leadership training in the universe and go like, what next? Oh, tennis, that'll do nicely. So the good thing was they shared with the business partners. So for some reason, as a young manager, I got selected. I spent a week on the tennis courts in a country house in Surrey at Ravenhurst with Alan Fine. And he was the guy who then taught Miles Downey, who I've talked to about that, John Whitmore and so on, that gang. And I was just blown away. You know, I couldn't play tennis. I didn't even know the rules. And yet when you do that exercise at the end of the week, when you coach somebody and you successfully get them to a massive improvement in their game in half an hour, and I'm going, guys, this works. This is awesome. Question, how does it help me manage people at work? To which they went, no idea. We're sports guys. We kind of think it should, and we're starting to think about it, but we should. So what stuck with me was the performance equation. And I didn't know why, but I knew it was important. So, you know, in the performance equation, the interference is that self-belief. Yeah. I always remember the way Alan explained it was the question we should ask somebody is, have you ever hit that one beautiful shot? And they will go like, well, yeah, once, but that's it. So the real question is, why don't you given your system can do it, why don't you do it every time? And the answer was, because there's interference creeping in. And the interference, as he described it, was, according to Galway, this inner game, these thoughts. So my first big piece of work was to take that formula and figure out how to apply it in the corporate context. And that just changed everything for me. So potential, and this took several years, I managed to figure out what exactly potential's made up of in the corporate context, and then exactly what are the three sources of interference. And once you've done that, I realized that if you pin the equation to a job or a part of a job, the magic starts to happen because it becomes purely mathematical. So what typically happens is people focus on performance. And if the performance isn't good enough, they keep going, please get better, please get better, please get better, nagging, 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 and nothing changes. And then eventually they start to think, is this person the right one for the job? Now, mathematically, potential is the constant, interference is the variable. You can't question the constant. So you can't ask, is this the right person for the job? If you gave them the job, they can do it. Because, key belief, barring physical limitations, anybody can do anything they want to. You've just got to learn some stuff and practice it. So no matter how badly somebody's performing in the job, they could learn how to perform better. So if we reinforce that, you've got to give them the message, and it's not about, oh, I believe in you, right? The words I always use is, I know you can do this. And something shifts in people when they hear, I know you can do this. It's a difference between knowledge and belief and faith, yeah? Now we just have to focus on finding out what's getting in the way. Which of these three sources of interference, and it may be more than one. So we just open a couple of doors to see where the bit's missing is.
So the equation being performance equals potential minus interference. Do you mind sharing the three potential interferences?
Yeah, the interference. So only three possible sources. First one is skill. So do they know how to do it? And skill is a combination of knowledge and confidence to apply the knowledge. Sometimes people know what to do, but they don't have the confidence to do it. They're afraid of the consequence. You've then got environmental interference, which is anything outside the person which impacts their ability to do it. And you just work with those two things. And the beauty of it is, it's mathematics. If you have a coaching conversation with them and you find some interference and you fix it, well, what happens when we change a variable in the equation?
Well, the potential is constant. So
potential is constant, so the result changes.
Yep.
Guaranteed. Yeah.
Yep.
You won't always get 100% what you want, but now things are changing. Now we've got a direction to go in.
So, sorry, did I miss the third one?
Yes, the third one is aspiration. But you don't go there. If you're wanting to change somebody's performance, you don't go there, because if you go for aspiration, you will get a false positive. Because people enjoy what they're good at, and they do what they enjoy. So if somebody's not good at the job, so if they're not doing the job well, they're not enjoying themselves. And if they're not doing the job well, there must be something they don't know, or there's got to be skill or environmental interference getting in the way. Yeah, so you don't go for the false positive.
That's
and this is
huge.
why, yes, and this is why we focus everything in coaching on behaviors, not mindset. Because when you coach somebody and you get rid of some interference and they start to perform better, they will start to enjoy themselves more. How they think about their job, their motivation to do the job will increase. So you can get mindset change by re-engineering from behaviors. Yeah.
So therefore, based on that, when you start a coaching session, and the other thing that blows me away is often you don't even know this person. I've spent years teaching people on rapport building and getting to know the person in front of you, but quite often you don't know this person at all. You don't need to. So where do you start with your coaching session? What's your opening way of being, besides present and deeply listening, and you're there?
Yes, so you get yourself in that empty-minded space. You create an energetic connection with them. That's key. When we open our mouth, if you listen to all of those demos, they pretty much all start with a finding out. So it's what ICF would call competency 3, the second half of competency 3. What are we doing in this conversation? What is it they want from it? What's the thing we're dealing with? So the way it's described in the ICF MCC minimum behaviors document, 3.6, if I remember correctly, says that the coach will fully partner with the client to establish what they need to achieve in the coaching session. And then 3.7 says the coach will fully partner with the client to establish what they need to resolve in order to achieve what they want to achieve in the session. Now, what most coaches are missing that second bit. It's like, oh, here's what you want to coach on. Okay, how are you going to do that then? And we're off to the races trying to come up with solutions. Right? The focus is, see, people can't go anywhere if they don't know where they are. So very quickly, you've got to establish the conversation, and you've got to just peel the layers down to what's the real issue here. So give an example. If I go to one of the demo examples, I've got actual corporate managers I've coached on my membership program. You'll have a very common one where the manager coming in for coaching is having a performance issue with one of his team. So his problem that he wants to solve is the performance of his team member. When you get down to it, 9 times out of 10, the real issue is his fear of the emotional kickback he might get if he gives this person some negative feedback. So you've got to peel the layers and get down to it. And if you go back and listen to any of those demos on the YouTube channel, you'll hear this, every single one. Absolute clarity on where they are now. Because coaching is just helping people get absolute clarity on where they are now, absolute clarity on where they need to be, from which, at the level of the subconscious, at the speed of thought, they will figure out what they need to do differently to get from here to there.
Well, on that note, notice I was pausing for effect there to remind us all the importance of the pause, to allow the thinking to finish. I stopped taking notes halfway through and
well done.
trusted my intuition. You've inspired me to continue to explore mastery. I've been coaching for a very long time, and sometimes I feel like I know nothing, which is actually a really exciting stage in my career. I know that you've got the Simplicity of Mastery membership approach, very affordable learning to mastery. So everyone, please check out tonylatimer.ai, or the show notes will have all the details to support your coaching journey. Tony, it's been a pleasure. I know Emma Doyle with an Aussie accent threw you at the beginning, but hopefully we got there in the end, and we've had a beautiful connection. I loved the energy of this conversation. So thank you so much for being on the Coaching
Awesome.
Podcast.
It's been an absolute delight to be here, Emma. Thank you very much.
And thank you everybody else for listening.
The Coaching Podcast is sponsored by Transition Coach for Athletes, a global coaching, mentoring, and US college sporting scholarship placement service. The service helps athletes navigate the often challenging world of choosing your best college fit while maximizing sports performance. Visit www.transitioncoachforathletes.com. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a rating review on your podcast listening device. And don't forget to tell a fellow coach about the show. The ball is in your court to take action and enjoy your coaching.